So revenue sharing, a huge topic, obviously. Where do you guys feel like you stand in terms of football spending as you look at the, whatever it is, $22 million for next year?
Yeah, obviously there's still a lot of moving pieces, and to say that is complex right now would be an understatement in terms of how all those things are going to shake out with the settlement and how you apply it. But I mean, we are committed to competing at the highest level, and so a lot of work to do in the meantime, a lot of things to think through, but we're committed to doing that and making sure our football program and all our teams continue to be successful.
I know the breakdown has been widely discussed. Should it be based on student athlete male-female ratio, or should it be based on, say, marketability, which football certainly is at the top of that? Where do you fall right now? Where do you think it's going to lead to?
Yeah, I think there's, again, enough open questions that I don't know if any of us know exactly where that's going to land. And, we're running a lot of different models, and so that we're prepared for all of those different options. And perhaps there'll be some guidance that's very clear. We've not gotten that on a lot of topics so far to this point. But until then, I think all you really can do is sort of model out different options of how you would, how you'd lay it out, where you distribute resources based on what that landscape looks like. So I feel like regardless of where that is, we're going to be prepared to execute and move forward.
Some of your fellow conference members are doing things with their NIL situation where points are being distributed for season ticket holders, or events being held where they can raise money on their campus. Where is Iowa at with that stuff?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and one that we're all continuing to evaluate in terms of what's best for our campus, but I think also what allows some institutions in some states to do that and what prohibits others. And so some of that has to do with NCAA rules, current NCAA rules, and some of it has to do with state laws. And so whether or not we would execute things in exactly the same way, we certainly want to have all of those options available to our donors, whether those are donors to the Swarm and the great things they're doing, or our donors to our institution. So while we haven't rolled out anything new yet, we're certainly talking about that on a daily basis.
Beth, is it worth asking if you're going to fully fund revenue sharing in a Big Ten school?
I think our goal is always, obviously, to make sure you have the resources available to compete. And so, that's what our priority is on making sure we prepare and position ourselves to do just that.
Rich with Clark, the 21, 22 million, whatever the number is, that's obviously a significant number. Do you see cutting sports as part of getting to that number as you're kind of trying these different models?
We're not having any discussions about cutting sports.
Rich Clark mentioned that they sent out surveys to CFP to get ready for potential home sites and all that, and how you would handle it, hotels, all that stuff. And some universities are like, we don't even know if we could play a game on our site. Obviously, I'm not talking about Iowa, but what was kind of the feedback you gave to the CFP, and how prepared are you, say, for this year, you end up having to host a CFP game?
Yeah, we're prepared and we're ready. So we would love to have that opportunity. It is no small survey, so you make it sound like a five-question thing, and it was a book of questions to ask. And if anyone doesn't know, we obviously have to make sure we're winterized and think about playing a game in Kinnick on December 20th or 21st. So there certainly was a lot of work on our end to do, because when we have an opportunity to host that, we want to do it to the best of our ability and make sure we serve those teams participating and our fans in a really great way. So we're excited about that, and certainly know it. We haven't had a football game in December. We've maybe had games that felt like football games in December from a weather perspective, but we're excited about that option, and I know our team's going to work hard to earn that opportunity.
What are some of the challenges that in preparing for potential hosting in December that you found in this process? Is it hotels, anything like that?
Not for us. I mean, we did have some navigating to do with December graduation dates on our campus, and so which really trickles down to parking and how you navigate all of those things. So a little bit of that, a little bit of making sure we could winterize appropriately the stadium and what we need. But again, any of those events are going to be heavy lifts, but we feel like we're prepared to do it.
Beth, back to the legalese of this NIL and the revenue sharing aspect. How helpful would it be to have a directive from either the Department of Ed or OCR? And is that even viable when the Johnson case could change the structure of it all? Like, I understand the complexity when you talk about it, but what is it that you all need? Like, what is the thing? And even if that directive is temporary because Johnson's still pending, what's the thing that's going to help guide everybody in the Title IX realm in particular?
Yeah, well, I think, again, whether you're talking Title IX or really any of the issues that have been forced, I think what we hope for, I think you've heard Coach Ferentz mention this, I mean, you just want clarity and consistency on what the rules and parameters are across the entire spectrum. And after that, then you put the puzzle pieces together, and we all have our own institutional strategies that allow us to move forward. So no matter where a directive comes from, I think having some indication from some entity, even if for a short period of time, as you referenced, there are court cases moving forward at different paces and different cadences, but any level of finality for a period of time, I think, allows us to start to move forward and enact one of these models I mentioned that we're working through.
When Jeffrey Kessler says this almost undoubtedly will end up in another court case because schools are left to their own devices, how not encouraging is that, given that he represented the three parties in the House cases and all this other stuff?
I don't know. It's hard to remember a time when we weren't involved in court cases in college athletics, right? That is, become a consistent theme, and it's really critical that we all are tracking on those, and certainly our local general councils as well as conferences are always going to be monitoring that. We all want to do things the right way. We want to make sure we can move forward, but I think we live in a society that's pretty litigious, and there's some open and some valid questions that whether it's athletes or other entities are asking, and it's just how they're going to work through the court system. So we're going to have to be patient and then ready for the next one that gets thrown at us.
When you look at the filling scholarships, and if it's a 105 for football, there has to be either you take it away from another men's sport or you have to add to a women's sport. Do you anticipate that sport, football, being filled all the way to 105 if that ends up being the final number? And if so, how would you offset that to ensure that you're in compliance with Title IX?
Yeah, well, that assumes you don't add any additional revenue into the system, and I think in some ways you're sort of rebuilding this whole plane while you're trying to fly it. But I think those are conversations in football specifically, but across all sports. We're really going to be talking a lot about what's most impactful for a program. Is it in scholarships? Is it in that NIL payment component? And making sure that every dollar that we put into the system is going to need to have a clear ROI, and that is obviously has a lot to do with how's it going to impact winning, how's it going to help them graduate and be good young men and women. And so, as opposed to getting out in front and saying, hey, we want to do this, and we don't know those numbers in finality yet. We want to understand where should we put our resources that it's really going to help us win, and that's when we'll make a decision about what those numbers look like, where we put them and what adjustments we might have to make.
As you're planning around kind of all this uncertainty, what are kind of the primary kind of guiding tenets or principles that you're keeping in mind as you're kind of making these decisions?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've talked a lot about as a team, and I mean our internal team, coaches and staff, about what defines an Iowa experience. And so we want to make sure that we provide that for all our student athletes. And now that may mean that experience looks different based on which sport you're on, but an experience that we can be proud of across the board. And so that's certainly one piece. And I think it's really important at this time, and really any time you do anything, you got to do it in a way that reflects who you are. And so while we're all making the same decisions, I think we're going to make them in a way that reflects what the personality and the culture is at the University of Iowa. It's got to make sense for the culture that a particular coach builds. And it looks different, obviously, in our football program, and then it might in some other Big Tens, as it might look different in women's soccer. And so trying to sort through all those things and allow our coaches to be part of that decision making about how their needs might look a little bit different, and then how can we try to meet and serve them in the middle.
How do you go about this from a budgetary sense? And because you probably had to do like 4 or 5 different models just in the last year, how are you adjusting?
Yeah, five would be a good number. I think we surpassed that several months ago. When just like you, I'm reading everything you all are writing, and so it changes those models on a daily basis. But Yeah, it is. There's a component of this that is just purely a financial exercise, right? You've got some basic Excel sheets where you're moving numbers around, and now you've got them built out where I can make a change in 2 seconds, and it's just spitting out. And the execution of those is a lot different. But in terms of building them, you kind of get a template for how you move things around, how you're going to make sure you're still in compliance with Title IX and scholarships or a participation standpoint. I mean, you can do all of those different things in really a click of a button. But it's, from a financial perspective, I mean, it's real. And so, you really are focused on 2 things, right? How do you allocate the resources you have in the best way possible, and how do you generate more revenue? And so, that's where you spend all your time and thought, and really, trying to dig in on those items.
When you look at the CFP and winterizing the stadium, are there heating coils under the turf at Kinnick Stadium?
You're going to ask me technical questions that I probably should know the answer to, but I don't. So I can get back to you on that one.
I apologize.
Yeah. No. That's okay. I probably should know if we have heating coils, but I don't know that we do. But I'll find out.
Okay.
It makes snow removal a little bit easier. That's right.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.